Hey everyone, today we're going to discuss about the probability distribution. Now, a probability distribution is a listing of the possible values and the corresponding probabilities of a discrete random variable or a formula for the probabilities. So basically, a probability distribution tells us the probability that a particular value of a random variable will appear, because definitely each of the values of the random variable does not have the same probabilities. So the listing of all the possible probabilities of each of the random variables is presented in the probability distribution. So we're going to deal with the probability distribution of a discrete random variable. It is a correspondence that assigns probabilities to the values of a random variable. Take note that we also call this a probability mass function. Now, before we construct probability distribution, let's take a look first on the properties of a discrete random variable x. First of all, the probability p of x. Take note how we're going to represent the probability of a discrete random variable x as p of x. So the probability of x is in between 0 and 1 only. That's how we represent probabilities, in between 0 and 1 only. And 0 and 1 are inclusive. Next, the sum of all the probabilities, the summation of p of x is equal to 1. So meaning, if I take all the possible probabilities of this discrete random variable, their sum should be equal to 1, or 100%. So here are the steps in constructing a discrete probability distribution. Step 1 is we list the sample space of the experiment. Second is we count the occurrence of the random variable in each outcome and assign a number to this outcome. Third is we construct the frequency distribution of the values of the random variable. And step 4, we construct the probability distribution of the random variable by getting the probability of occurrence of each value of the random variable. In order for us to illustrate further these steps, let's have an example. So in our example here, we have 3 coins. 3 coins are flipped. Let h be the random variable representing the number of heads that will appear. Construct the probability distribution of the random variable h. So let's start first by listing down the sample space of the experiment by writing it down on a table. So here's our table. Let's write here the outcomes, or the sample space. And let's list here on the right side is the number of heads that will appear, because that is our random variable, h, as the number of heads that will appear. So since we'll be flipping 3 coins, we have to have 3. So first possible outcome would be h, h, and h. So there are 3 heads. So the number of heads would be 3. By the way, since we're dealing with 3 coins and there are 2 outcomes per coin, remember that we can have 2 times 2 times 2 outcomes, which is equal to 8. So we're actually expecting 8 outcomes here. Please remember the one that we've discussed in combinatorics, the permutations of objects. So 2 times 2 times 2, that is 8. So heads, heads, heads. The number of heads is 3. Another outcome would be heads, heads, tails, where the number of heads is 2. It can also be heads, tails, heads. It is also 2, or tails, heads, heads. The number of heads is still 2. We can also have heads, tails, tails. Number of heads is 1. Take note that what we're doing here is just we're listing down the possible times, or the possible outcomes where heads will appear. So we have here heads, tails, tails. We may also have tails, head, tails, just 1, or tails, tails, heads, just 1. And finally, we can have tails, 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 which is equal to 0. So these are the values of the random variables that we have. It could either be 3, 2, 1, or 0. So we've listed down the sample space, that's step 1. And we've counted the occurrence of the random variable in each outcome and assign a number to this outcome. This is step 1, the one that I'm highlighting right now. And this is step 2, the number of outcomes. So this is the value of the random variable. For step 3, we construct a frequency distribution of the value of the random variable. So let's make another table, this one, and take note that this is what we're going to do now is we're going to write down the value of the random variable, the value of h, which is the random variable. So let's highlight it here. And for this one, let's have the probability of h. Probability, or we can just write it down as P of h. The probability of the occurrence of h. Take note that we only have 4 values of h, which is 3, 2, 1, and 0. Now, in computing for the probability, we're going to check out this first table that we did here. First, let's take a look at the number of heads. This is 3. And there are 8 possible outcomes. So out of 8 possible outcomes, there's only one time that 3 heads will appear. So the probability that 3 will appear is 1 over 8. So that's P of h. Second, we have the value of h as 2. So this is 2. There are the number of h equals 2 appeared 3 times out of 8 possible outcomes, since there are 3 possible outcomes where h will appear. So in this scenario, the probability is 3 over h. 3 because the number 2 appeared 3 times, and h is the total number of outcomes. Next, let's have the value of h as 1. Again, there are 3 values of 1 in our table out of 8 possible outcomes. So the probability is 3 over h. And lastly, we have 0 or no heads at all. So 0 appeared 1 time out of 8 possible outcomes. So the probability is 1 over h. So this is the probability distribution of flipping 3 coins. We get to know what will be the value of h when we flip 3 coins. It's 3, 2, 1, 0. And here are the probabilities. So this means that the probability that 3 heads will appear in flipping a coin is 1/8. Or if we express it in decimal, it's 0.125 or 12.5%. The probability of 2 heads that will appear in flipping 3 coins would be 3 over 8. In the same manner, the probability that 1 head will appear would be 3 over 8. And the probability of 0 heads that will appear would be 1 over 8. So that's how we construct the probability distribution of a random variable. So in our next video, we're going to discuss about the mean and variance of the discrete probability distribution. So I hope you guys learned a lot today. Thank you guys for watching, and see you guys on the next video.